The holiday season was supposed to be the most joyful time of the year for me and my children. For months, I've been counting down the days, imagining the laughter, the warmth of family gatherings, and the simple happiness of being surrounded by loved ones. Our small home was filled with festive decorations and the soft glow of fairy lights. The children were buzzing with excitement, eagerly asking about the gifts and the special meals we would share. For them, these gatherings were magical, a time when the world felt safe and full of love. But that all changed one ordinary afternoon when my phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice was calm but carried an unexpected weight. "It's too chaotic this year. Let's skip you coming," she said quietly. I blinked in surprise, trying to process the words. I wanted to ask why, to understand what made this year so different. But instead, I simply replied, "Okay," keeping my voice steady, masking the sudden tightness in my chest. I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. Was something wrong? Had I done something to upset them? Or was it just that the family was overwhelmed with too many commitments this time around? The questions swirled inside my mind, but I didn't want to press. After all, this was my mom, and her decision was final. I didn't want to create conflict or add to anyone's stress, especially during the holidays. Still, the hurt lingered quietly beneath my calm exterior. I thought about the children, who were counting on this visit. I pictured their eager faces, their hopeful smiles when I told them we'd see Grandma and the rest of the family. I knew I had to stay strong for them. So, I put on a brave face and told myself that maybe it was for the best, that the holidays could still be special in our own home. I spent the rest of the day trying to distract myself. I went through the motions of wrapping presents and preparing meals, reminding the kids that family is not just about being in the same place but about the love we share. Yet, a quiet ache settled deep inside, a sense of being left out, of missing something that I once thought was unbreakable. By the evening, the house was calm, the children asleep, and I sat alone reflecting on the phone call. Despite the sadness, I resolved to keep going, to create a new kind of celebration filled with love and resilience. The holiday was not cancelled. It had simply changed shape, and I would be the one to fill it with warmth, no matter what. After the call with my mom, I was determined not to let the disappointment steal the joy from our holiday season. I told myself that the true spirit of the holidays wasn't about where we were but about the love we shared as a family. So, I set about making our home a place filled with warmth and cheer. The next morning, I pulled out the box of decorations that had been stored away since last year. The kids watched eagerly as I untangled strings of colorful lights and carefully hung shiny ornaments on the little tree we had in the corner of the living room. Their eyes sparkled with excitement, and their laughter filled the room as they helped me place glittering stars and festive ribbons. Despite the quiet sadness lingering in my heart, their joy was infectious. Wrapping presents became our daily ritual. We spread wrapping paper, ribbons, and gift tags across the dining table, turning the simple act of wrapping into a fun activity. The kids insisted on choosing the brightest paper for their gifts, giggling as they tried to guess what was inside. I smiled, cherishing these moments, knowing they deserved to feel happy and loved, no matter what. As we prepared cookies and sang along to holiday songs on the radio, I noticed how tightly the kids clung to the traditions. For them, these rituals were what made this season magical. I held them close and reminded them that we might not be going to Grandma's house this year, but we were together, and that was what mattered most. Still, beneath the laughter, there was a subtle tension I couldn't ignore. The children would sometimes pause mid-song, their smiles faltering just for a moment. Their questions were quieter now, and when I asked if they were all right, they would simply nod or change the subject. One evening, as I tucked them into bed, my youngest whispered, "Do you think Grandma will miss us?" My heart ached, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I'm sure she loves you very much," I said softly. That night, after they had fallen asleep, I sat alone in the dimly lit room and reflected on those small moments. I wanted to protect them from disappointment, but the truth was becoming harder to hide. The absence of the usual family gathering felt heavier than I had anticipated. It wasn't just the missing people at the table. It was the feeling of being forgotten. Still, I pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the present. I reminded myself that this was our chance to build new memories, to create our own traditions that the children would cherish. With every decoration hung and every gift wrapped, I was trying to hold on to hope. Hope that despite everything, our little family could find happiness in the holiday season after all. One quiet afternoon, as the kids were busy with their homework, I decided to take a brief break and scroll through Facebook. It had become a habit lately, a way to stay connected with the world outside our home, even if sometimes that world felt distant and unfamiliar. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary, just the usual mix of posts and photos from friends and family. As I scrolled down my feed, a video caught my eye. The thumbnail showed a lively scene, a table full of people laughing, chatting, and sharing food. I clicked on it, thinking it might be a holiday gathering I had missed or forgotten about. But as the video played, my heart began to sink. There, at the center of the table, was my sister's ex-husband, smiling and raising a glass. My eyes widened, and beside him were several teenagers from our neighborhood, all sitting comfortably together, as if they belonged. The camera panned around the table, capturing familiar faces, cousins, old family friends, neighbors, everyone except us. I paused the video, replaying the moment again and again. How'd I miss this? Why had no one told me about it? My mind raced as emotions surged, confusion, disbelief, and then a deep, aching sense of betrayal. My children came into the room, curious about my sudden silence. I showed them the screen, trying to explain what I was seeing without letting my voice tremble. Their faces fell instantly, mirroring my own hurt. Was I the only one left out? I wondered, the question burning in my chest. The video wasn't just a clip. It was proof of something I didn't want to believe, that we had been deliberately excluded. Each familiar smile in the video felt like a quiet stab. The laughter ringing through the screen seemed louder now, echoing in the empty space where I should have been. It wasn't just about missing a party. It was about the realization that this year, the family gathering had gone on without us. I sat back, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The holiday I had been so eager to celebrate, the family I thought I was part of, suddenly felt so distant, so fractured. The screen glowed in the dim room, showing them together, while I sat alone with the children, feeling invisible. The betrayal wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, quiet, and deeply personal. It was the silence of being left out, the absence of an invitation, the knowing that you were not wanted at the table where everyone else was welcomed. I closed the laptop slowly, my mind swirling with a storm of emotions. The holiday season had changed again, this time, in a way that would leave a lasting scar. The moment I showed the video to my children, their faces changed. The sparkle of excitement that had filled their eyes just hours before dimmed instantly. They watched in silence, eyes wide, trying to understand what they were seeing. The scene of laughter and togetherness on the screen was a sharp contrast to the quietness of our home. After a long pause, my youngest whispered, "Why didn't we get to go?" Her voice was barely audible, trembling with a mixture of confusion and hurt. My older child's lip quivered as he looked up at me, searching for an answer that I wasn't ready to give. The weight of their question hung heavily in the air, filling the room with a sorrow I struggled to contain. I wanted to comfort them, to shield them from the sting of rejection, but the truth was complicated and painful. How do you explain to a child that sometimes, even family can leave you out? That sometimes people make choices that don't include you, and it's not because you did something wrong? I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words, but none seemed enough. Tears began to well up in their eyes, small drops tracing down their cheeks. They didn't cry loudly or throw tantrums. Instead, the sadness settled deep, quiet and heavy. I felt my own throat tighten, the walls closing in around me. We sat together on the couch, holding each other close, sharing a grief that words could not fully express. Their questions kept coming, soft and persistent. Did Grandma forget about us? Did they not want us there? Are we not family? Each one cut deeper than the last, and I wished I could erase the pain from their hearts. Instead, I just hugged them tighter, telling them how much I loved them and how proud I was of them. Inside, I was breaking too. But there was no screaming, no outburst, just a quiet, overwhelming weight pressing down on all of us. The kind of heartbreak that lingers in the silence, in the spaces between words. I looked at their tear-streaked faces and promised myself I would protect them from feeling invisible again. That night, after tucking them into bed, I stayed awake long after the house had fallen silent. The loneliness of the moment pressed down on me like a heavy fog. The family we once looked forward to seeing had become a painful memory, a reminder that sometimes love is complicated and sometimes people disappoint in ways you never expect. But even in the quiet tears and unspoken sorrow, I found a flicker of resolve. For my children, I would be their strength, their safe place. No matter what the world outside decided, in our home, there would always be loved, always be seen. After the tears had dried and the children were tucked safely in their beds, I found myself alone in the living room, the weight of the day pressing heavily on my shoulders. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater, but inside me, emotions churned, hurt, disappointment, and a growing sense of resolve. I stood and walked slowly to the corner where all the gifts were piled, some carefully wrapped, others still in their colorful boxes, left untouched and unopened. Each one was a reminder of what was supposed to be a joyful family celebration, laughter filling the room, hands reaching out in warmth and togetherness. But this year, none of that had happened. Instead, there was silence and absence. No phone calls checking in, no invitations, no "we can't wait to see you." Just an empty space where love was supposed to be. I pulled out my phone and methodically began to take pictures of every unwrapped gift. One by one, I captured them, some wrapped with care, others hastily tossed in bags. I didn't feel the usual excitement or gratitude. Instead, I felt distant, disconnected from the holiday cheer I had worked so hard to create. Yet, my actions were deliberate, purposeful. This was not a moment for tears or anger. It was a quiet statement. When the photos were ready, I typed a simple message to the family group chat, returning these today. No emojis, no explanations, just those few words that carried the weight of months, maybe years, of being overlooked and forgotten. Then, I waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. The silence was deafening. No replies, no messages, no apologies or questions. Just empty space where communication should have been. I stayed at the blank screen, feeling a strange mix of bitterness and clarity. The silence spoke volumes. It told me how little effort had been made to include us, to keep the family together this year. It revealed the distance that had grown, not just physically, but emotionally and intentionally. As I sat there in the dim light, I thought about what this meant, not just for the holidays, but for the future. How long could we keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't? How many more times would we be left out, left behind, like ghosts at the edge of a celebration? But beneath the sadness, there was something else, a quiet strength. I was choosing to no longer accept being invisible. This simple act of sending a message wasn't about punishment. It was about setting a boundary, about protecting myself and my children from the pain of neglect. I put the phone down and took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be another day, another chance to find light in the darkness, to hold on to the family we had right here, even if the others chose to stay away. The quiet of the evening was shattered by a sudden, sharp knock on the door. My heart jumped, and I glanced at the sleeping children, frozen on the couch with wide eyes. The knocking came again, this time more urgent, more insistent. Footsteps echoed down the hallway as someone approached, and my breath caught in my throat. It was my dad. I opened the door to find him standing there, his face flushed with anger. His eyes were sharp, his jaw tight, and his fists clenched at his sides. The warmth and comfort I had hoped for were nowhere to be found. Instead, there was a storm raging inside him, ready to burst. "Why did you send that message?" he demanded, his voice loud and trembling with frustration. "Returning the gifts. What were you thinking? You can't just do that." I stood silently, the weight of his words pressing down on me. Part of me wanted to explain, to tell him everything. The loneliness, the exclusion, the pain of watching a family celebration without us. But the words caught in my throat. I wasn't sure if I wanted to cry or argue. The raw emotion threatened to spill out, but I held it back, unsure of what the right response was. Dad's gaze swept over the room, taking in the quiet children and the scattered gifts. "You don't understand," he continued, his voice softer but no less intense. "Family is complicated, but you can't just push everyone away like this." I nodded slowly, trying to hold on to my composure. Inside, I felt torn between the ache of feeling unseen and the desire for reconciliation. The tension between us was thick, filling every corner of the room. It was the kind of silence that screamed louder than any words. My dad's expression softened for a brief moment, but the anger lingered beneath the surface. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the frustration of not knowing how to fix what had broken and the hurt of feeling caught in the middle. We stood there, locked in a fragile standoff, the past and present colliding in the space between us. The knock on the door had opened more than just the entrance to the house. It had opened old wounds and unspoken truths. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The children watched quietly, sensing the gravity of the moment but unsure how to respond. I realized then that this was only the beginning of a conversation that needed to happen, even if it was painful. The night stretched on, heavy with unsaid words and emotions waiting to be unpacked. And in that silence, I knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but it was necessary, for the sake of my children and for the family we still hoped to rebuild. I took a shaky breath, finally breaking the silence that had hung between us since my dad's arrival. "You don't understand," I said quietly at first, then louder as the words found their way out. "It's not just about the gifts. It's about feeling like we don't matter. Like every year, we're the last ones to be thought of, or worse, forgotten completely." He frowned, crossing his arms. "That's not how it is. Family dynamics are complicated. You know that. But it feels like I'm always the afterthought," I said, my voice trembling. "Like no one really cares whether we're there or not. I see videos, pictures, messages from everyone else, and I wonder why we're left out. Every year, it's the same. I try to keep the peace, to be patient, but it hurts, Dad. It hurts deeply." He shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tightening. "I never meant for you to feel that way. We all get busy. Things happen." "Busy?" I laughed bitterly. Busy is an excuse. It's easy to say that when you're sitting at the table with everyone else. What about us? What about the kids who ask why grandma isn't there? What about the silence from those who should be family? There was a long pause. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the frustration of hearing this truth for the first time, the guilt that suddenly weighed on him. "I didn't realize, maybe I should have done more," he admitted slowly, his voice cracking. Tears welled in my eyes. "It's not just about you, Dad. It's everyone. The whole family feels like they've moved on without us. And it's exhausting, pretending everything is fine when it's not." He sighed deeply, rubbing his face with his hand. "I guess I've been avoiding this, hoping it would fix itself." "It won't fix itself if we don't talk about it," I said firmly. "We have to face the truth, even if it hurts. Because otherwise, nothing changes." The weight of years of neglect, misunderstanding, and loneliness filled the room. His anger mixed with guilt, my sadness merged with frustration. It was messy, raw, and painful, but real. A clash of emotions that couldn't be ignored any longer. For the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, the walls were starting to come down. Maybe this was the beginning of something different, if only we could find a way through the pain together. As the conversation faded into a heavy silence, my mind drifted back to past holidays, moments both small and significant that had quietly shaped the distance between us. I remembered sitting at the edge of the table during childhood celebrations, watching cousins laugh and share stories while I felt invisible, like a shadow no one noticed. The same feeling lingered every year, growing heavier as I got older. There was the time Mom handed out presents unevenly, favoring some relatives while I and my siblings got overlooked. Or the family decisions made without any thought of including me. Plans arranged and changed, invitations sent late or forgotten entirely. At the time, I'd shrugged it off, telling myself it wasn't personal. But those little exclusions piled up, forming cracks in the foundation of what I hoped would be a united family. Growing up, I often wondered why I was treated differently. Was it because I lived farther away? Because my choices didn't align with theirs? Or maybe because I wasn't seen as part of the inner circle? Whatever the reasons, the pattern became clear. Subtle neglect disguised as oversight. A quiet sidelining that left me feeling like an outsider in my own family. As years passed, the cracks deepened. Phone calls became fewer, visits rarer. The once joyful family gatherings now seemed like events I was expected to hear about secondhand, if at all. This year's exclusion was not a sudden act of cruelty. It was the breaking point of a long-standing pattern. But in the middle of these memories, I also recalled moments from their side. The busy schedules, the misunderstandings, the unspoken expectations that sometimes made it hard for anyone to bridge the gap. I saw their perspective too. A family stretched thin, juggling conflicts and history, unsure how to reach out without reopening old wounds. I realized the pain was not one-sided. There was frustration on both ends, my hurt and their confusion. Miscommunication had built walls that neither side fully understood. What felt like rejection to me might have been oversight or hesitation to them. This realization didn't erase the hurt, but it added layers of complexity. Family isn't perfect. It's messy, tangled in emotions, history, and unmet expectations. The fault lines beneath the surface are sometimes invisible until they fracture everything. This year, the fracture became impossible to ignore. It was a wake-up call, forcing us to confront the distance we'd been trying to pretend didn't exist. As I looked around at the quiet house and the unopened gifts, I knew this moment held the possibility for change, if only we could face the pain honestly and try to heal the wounds that had long been ignored. After the tension had settled slightly, my dad's voice softened. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, almost as if admitting the words was difficult for him. "I didn't realize how much this was hurting you. I never wanted you to feel like you weren't part of the family." His apology hung in the air, fragile but sincere. I wanted to reach out and grab onto it, to let it heal the cracks that had formed over the years. But deep down, I knew forgiveness wasn't that simple. It was a process, not a switch to flip on and off. Holding onto the pain felt heavy, exhausting, like dragging a weight that kept me from moving forward. But letting go of it felt like risking the chance of being hurt again. I was caught between two difficult choices: to forgive and rebuild, or to protect myself by keeping my distance. As I sat there, the faces of my children came sharply into focus. Their innocence, their need for love and belonging, it was a reason I had kept trying all these years. Not just for me, but for them. How could I teach them to forgive if I couldn't find it in my own heart? Yet, how could I let them be vulnerable to the same hurt we'd just endured? The decision was painful. Reconnecting meant opening up to the possibility of more disappointment. Walking away meant closing the door on family ties that, despite everything, still mattered deeply. "I don't know if I'm ready yet," I admitted softly. "But maybe we can try. For the kids. For us." He nodded slowly, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "That's all I ask." In that moment, I realized there was no perfect answer, only the messy, imperfect journey toward healing. Growth wouldn't happen overnight, but with each small step, there was a chance to rebuild what had been broken. The night ended not with a resolution, but with a fragile promise to try, to communicate, and to hold space for each other's pain. For the sake of family, and for the hope that love could still find its way through the cracks. Weeks had passed since that tense night, and though things hadn't magically fixed themselves, the air in our home felt lighter. The silence that once filled every corner was slowly replaced by tentative conversations and small moments of connection. Time had a way of softening edges, allowing wounds to heal, not completely, but enough to move forward. I found myself reflecting on everything: the hurt, the anger, the loneliness, and seeing it with clearer eyes. I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the pain or pretending it didn't exist. It was about choosing to release the bitterness that held me captive and embracing the possibility of joy in new ways. With my children, I created a tradition of our own. It was simple, honest, and full of laughter. We decorated the house with handmade ornaments, baked cookies from scratch, and exchanged gifts wrapped not in fancy paper but in love and thoughtfulness. Some of the gifts I had returned to the family remained unopened. Others stayed with us, reminders that joy could come from unexpected places. In those moments, I found a deep sense of peace. It wasn't the peace that comes from perfect circumstances, but the kind that grows from acceptance of the past, of imperfect families, and of the strength we carry within ourselves. The bitterness that once threatened to consume me faded, replaced by gratitude for what I had, my children, our little sanctuary, and the chance to build something meaningful on our own terms. I understood then that healing doesn't require permission or approval from others. It only requires a choice, a decision to move beyond pain and hold on to hope. As we gathered around our modest table, sharing stories and smiles, I felt a quiet certainty. The fractures in our family might never fully disappear, but love, real, steadfast love, could fill the cracks and light the way forward. And in that light, we found our way home.